Hey there, welcome back to the show. Today's episode is a bit of a deep dive into you, or rather, who you think you are. The more I learn about what it means to be human, the more I keep coming back to the one simple but powerful idea. Identity is at the center of everything. Who you are, how you see yourself, how the world sees you, it influences your thoughts, your decisions, your relationships, your well-being, all of it. Psychologists define identity as, quote, the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that create one's sense of self. So, in other words, understanding your identity, yourself, is the foundation of self-awareness. And self-awareness, that's the starting line for everything else we're going to talk about here. Growth, connection, healing, leadership, even self-care. Your identity began with your first family, whoever raised you, in whatever form that took. And it's made up of two interlocking parts, your personal identity and your social identity. Your personal identity is how you perceive yourself, your favorite things, your quirks, your birth order, your passions. And let's be honest, even the parts you're embarrassed about or wish you could change. Your social identity is how others see you, your race, your gender, religion, age, language, social class. Then there are the characteristics that show up in both realms, like your gender identity, sexual orientation, or cultural background. And when you really look at it all together, it's no wonder that two siblings in the same household can turn out wildly different. Now, here's something that really hit home for me. Anything that defines us by what we are, like our job, our hobbies, our roles, sets us up for failure. Because what happens when the what disappears? If your identity is all about being a teacher, what happens when you retire or get burned out or your role changes? You lose part of yourself, and that kind of loss can leave a huge void. But when you define yourself by who you are, like, I'm someone who lifts others up, or I'm someone who loves connecting with people, you carry that with you forever because no job, title, or external role can take that away. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, talks about this exact thing. He says, don't focus on the outcome, focus on the identity. So instead of saying, I want to lose 50 pounds, say something like, I want to be a healthy person. Because if you walk daily, eat well, sleep enough, and only lose 40 pounds, did you really fail? No, because you became the kind of person who lives a healthy life. And that result is going to last longer than a number on a scale. So let me ask you, what makes you you? There's no simple answer. Philosophers have asked this question for thousands of years. Socrates asked why. Plato described the soul as a chariot with reason at the driver and two horses pulling the chariot, one called spirit and the other called appetite. Spirit drives our social impulses, validation, judgment, approval, connection. Appetite is, well, the animal side of us, the cravings, the urges. And reason, our rational mind that's trying to steer the chariot and keep it under control. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes not so much. Other traditions like Buddhism or Hinduism have similar metaphors for the self. And honestly, so does modern psychology. Let me tell you a personal story. Back in the 1960s, my parents believed firmly in nurture over nature, that who we become is shaped more by how we're raised than by our genes. And my sister and I were both adopted as infants, just 18 months apart. Same household, same rules, same values, but wildly different identities. Even though we were close, best friends really, we've always shown up in the world differently. And that's the thing. Identity is this swirling blend of genetics, prenatal experiences, trauma, support, culture, and family norms. It's complicated. It's messy. And it's beautifully ours. Now let's talk roles, because part of our identity is how we show up in our different roles of life. And here's the twist. Sometimes our identity shapes our behavior, but sometimes our behavior shapes our identity. It's a two-way street. Take me, for example. I'm white, middle-aged male working in education. I'm a son, a father, a teacher, a learner, a husband. Each of those roles brings out different pieces of me. As a son, I show up as a peacekeeper. As a father, I'm the provider and emotional anchor. As a teacher, I'm the connector and guide. But why do I show up the way I do? Some of it's subconscious. Some of it is me intentionally choosing to be different from how I was raised. And that, my friends, that is the power of self-awareness. Think of it like an iceberg. What people see, your actions, your tone, your words, that's the tip above water. But below all that, it's the real weight, your values, your identity, your wounds and your hopes. That's what drives everything. And when we face tension in a classroom, in a meeting, in a family moment, what do? We usually react from our deepest identity layers, the invisible stuff under the surface. What happens when someone pushes back? You're not just bumping into their ideas. You're bumping into who they think they are. And if neither of you has self-awareness or empathy, that is a recipe for dysfunction and hurt and misunderstanding. So let's bring this full circle. How do you start understanding your identity? Here's a strategy. First up, listen to how you introduce yourself. Do you lead with your job, your family role, your hometown? Try writing a long biography. This is strategy number 2, with no word limit. Then reduce it down to 150 words. What stays? What goes? What stays? Those are your values. Think about for a minute, what are you sensitive to? What gets under your skin? What are your pet peeves? Or, on the flip side, what lights you up? And finally, what parts of yourself do you dislike? That's often a clue to unhealed or unintegrated parts of your identity. My friends, this work isn't easy. But the more you understand yourself, the more aligned your choices become, and the more grounded you are, even when the winds of change keep blowing in. Thanks for joining me today. If this episode got you thinking, I'd love to hear what you discovered about yourself. Because when you know who you are, you stop trying to prove yourself to others, and you start living from a place of clarity, peace, and power. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and remember, you are more than any one label or rule. You are becoming. You are both a masterpiece and a work in progress. And that, friends, that is enough. My name is Matt Weld. This has been the Tethered and Whole podcast, and I hope to see you next week.